So today we have in modern times people celebrating the myth of Jesus of Nazareth by drinking wine and eating a Eucharist, a little piece of bread. And what's interesting is not only does the myth of Jesus derive from older dying and rising god myths, such as Osiris and Dionysus and Inanna, they actually also had the same ritual of eating a piece of bread and drinking some wine. So if we look at Osiris, he is a god of the Egyptian religion, and he is dismembered by the other god Set, the really badass, cool god that the cool thing about Set is we don't know what animal head he is. I have my own theory, but the people debate what animal he's supposed to be. We don't even know. People call it the Set animal. Some people say that animal went extinct. Some people say he's a donkey, and so there's all these. But Set dismembers Osiris, and then Osiris descends to the underworld where Anubis is, and then Isis heals him back to life, and he's restored. And what's cool is the cult of Osiris had a mold like you see here, and they would put soil in that, barley seeds in the soil, and they would grow barley in the shape of Osiris. So you would have this green Osiris. Osiris is actually depicted as a green god. And then when you're finished with the barley, you take that and you make beer and bread out of that. And now we'll look at the mold. When they were ready, they would now take the same mold, and you see on the left here, they would take the barley that they turned into sort of flour, put it in the mold again to make bread. And now the same mold that you grew the barley in is now being used to bake a body of Osiris. So you literally ate the body of Osiris, and then you drank the beer that was his blood. And that was part of the sort of the Osiris cult ritual. And we see a very similar thing in the other dying and rising god Dionysus, which is the direct inspiration for Jesus, the later gospel version of Jesus. The original myths of Jesus didn't have this, but the later conceptions of this myth of sort of zombie rabbi that lives in the sky, that was inspired by the Greek god Dionysus, who was the wine god. He could create wine just like Jesus can. And in the Greek religion, Dionysus is also dismembered. You would eat pieces of his body. You can see how this idea would take off. You would eat pieces of Dionysus's body, and then you would drink wine, which was Dionysus's blood. And they would even initiate the new members of the cult by pouring water over their head or dunking them in water. And so we can see, and you know, there's older dying and rising gods such as Inanna and Ishtar. She is executed on a hook or a pin. She's executed in a similar fashion, descends for 3 days, rises back to life. And so we can see these sort of mystery cults. This tradition had been carried on for many, many years, and it's still practiced today. So although all of this information clearly shows that Jesus of Nazareth is either a highly embellished myth about an actual charlatan rabbi, or it was just completely made up, there is still a debate between the mythicist scholars and the historicist scholars who think he was just a charlatan who was murdered, and then the mythicists think that he's a myth that was totally developed in writings. Regardless, despite Jesus of Nazareth clearly being fiction, it's still cool to me that these traditions stem from these older traditions. Like if I'm going to do something that's that's not true. It's nice for if it's going to be BS, at least be a traditional BS. You know, it's nice to think that we're still carrying on these traditions that our ancestors were doing for these older myths. And so I see this as a sort of a good thing. It's sort of it's a pleasant discovery to see that, you know, most of the Holy Bible is from older religion. And obviously that shows that it's fake, but you know, when we look at the myths such as the Garden of Eden, Cain and Abel, the flood myth, all of these myths that we also see in the older religions of Babylon, Sumerian, and I have videos about this. Isn't it nice to think that we're still carrying on the same beliefs that the original empire had? I think what's unfortunate is these newer versions that are in the Holy Bible are darker, violent, remove all positive female characters or make them sort of negative characters. That's unfortunate. But despite that, there's something really, it sort of warms my heart to think that we're carrying on these traditions. So I just wanted to share that fact. Think for yourself.